Hey everyone, it's Head of Reference and Cultural Assets Manager Jason Pannone here at the East Hartford Public Library. Today you see, for Raiders of the Lost Archive, I'm holding some key. No, this is not a key to some fantastic treasure. I am not going to be running chased by a boulder. That's not in my contract. Haha. Anywho, this key is the key to Wickham Library, and it was presented to Clarence Wickham back in 1941 by the president of the town council at the time. I'm going to have some other pictures of this and the plaque itself later on, or doing while I'm babbling on, so you can check it out then. But I want to tell you a little bit about the Wickhams and Wickham Library and Wickham Park, because they're all connected, and connected to the larger stage nationally. So first off, who were the Wickhams? So the Wickham Library is a memorial to Horace and Fylura Wickham, who Horace was born in Glastonbury, eventually grew up to become an engineer, an inventor. He had 40 patents to his name by the time of his death. And one of those was for the pre-made envelope. The envelopes that we take for granted that, you get something and you have to, from a company, or some response is required and you need to send back a pre-addressed envelope. That was Horace Wickham who invented that. Before that, there was no such thing. You either fashioned your own envelope, or you just folded up your letter or correspondence, wrote the address on the back, and sent it through the mail. So Horace invented that, became quite wealthy, and built an estate. He lived in Hartford, and then eventually retired to Manchester, where he built an estate called the Pines, and that is on the site of what's now Wickham Park. So Horace had a son, Clarence. Clarence was also quite inventive. He followed his father's footsteps. And what Clarence invented was the clear face on the envelope, so that when you want to send back something and it's already got the pre-addressed thing, then you stick it in the front so the address is in the window. That was Clarence Wickham, again in Hartford. And so there's this really interesting connection, and how that, this sort of everyday thing that we take for granted hadn't been invented, and the Wickhams got quite wealthy for it, and there's a neat little local connection to it. So Clarence Wickham did not have any children, so what he did was he did give money to build Wickham Library in East Hartford. Before that, I was reading in this little history that was done of the Burnside section by George Goodwin. Goodwin was a local guy, very interesting, born, I believe, in the 1850s, died, 1860s, excuse me, and he died in the 1960s. He was very close to 100 years old. Spans a really, really interesting period of history. The fact that, he crosses, East Hartford, moving from sleepy farm town to industrial community, blue-collar community, really, really cool. Anyway, Mr. Goodwin talks about that before the Wickham Library branch was built, there was one room in the back of a grocery store that served as the branch library for the Burnside section of East Hartford, which is roughly where the public safety complex is, St. Rose's Church, Burnside Methodist, roughly that area. So what the Wickhams did is they gave the money to Clarence and his wife to build Burnside, to build Wickham Memorial Library as a memorial to his parents, Horace and Fylura. And they wrote they wrote two, I have here, memorial books for both of them. We have a number of copies here at the library. Hopefully when we reopen, you can come check them out and you can learn more about the Wickhams. But they're really, really interesting. And as you may know, that right now Wickham Library is undergoing renovation, and we hope to modernize it, put things like elevators in, really redo the space and expand it so it's a much more user-friendly place for East Hartford residents to use. So, what does that have to do with Wickham Park? So, when Clarence and his wife passed on, Mr. Wickham's will was that the estate, the Pines, be given as a memorial park to be used for the benefit of Manchester and East Hartford residents. The park has grown over the years. The house that the Wickhams lived in, the actual Pines, was torn down. It proved to be too costly to maintain. So the administration now is done in what was the caretaker's house, on the property. And interestingly, the property itself was designed by Olmsted Associates of Brookline, Massachusetts. Now you may be thinking, Olmsted Street in East Hartford. Why, yes, it is actually a connection. The Olmsteds were one of the founding families of East Hartford, and their cousin across the river in Hartford was Frederick Law Olmsted, who you may know is the designer of such places as Central Park in New York City, the Emerald Necklace in Boston, that string of parks that kind of loops around the edge of Boston, and the Biltmore Estate in Asheville, North Carolina. And it's interesting that, again, there's this connection to the Olmsted Associates, which this is obviously long after Frederick Law Olmsted had passed on, but there's still this connection of this big nationally known firm that came back and did something local. So again, all these interesting connections of East Hartford to the wider world. And I just think it's a neat piece of local history that something as ordinary as a wooden key painted gold can trigger all these interesting things. Oh, and before I forget, if anybody has the Journal Inquirer from Friday, August 7th, there's an article about Wickham Park in it, which you might want to check out. If you don't have access to it, just let us know. Either give us a call or email us, and we'll be happy to see if we can track down this article for you so you can take a look at it. It's really, really cool. So anyway, there you go. I hope you enjoy this little piece of East Hartford history, and we'll see you next time. So until then, be safe, practice safe social distancing, wash your hands often, and be sure to wear your mask. We'll see you later. Bye.